join Greg and Richard right here on Talking Red.
Hello there, welcome back to Talking Reds, a Nottingham Forest podcast. I'm Greg Oram with Richard Spray, and with us on the panel, it's Jamie Tatler and Raf, the random pundit. Now, last night was one of those nights you remember. Nottingham Forest's first away win in Europe for around 30 years or so, a 2-1 win over Utrecht of the Netherlands, built on resilience, discipline, and some moments of real quality when it mattered most. It wasn't flawless. It was tested at times, but Forest stood up, managed the game, and showed they can eke out important results when it matters. So we'll get straight into that today. Who impressed, where Forest still need to sharpen up, and what that performance tells us about where this squad is heading. And then very quickly, the focus turns back to the Premier League. Sunday brings Tottenham Hotspur to the world-famous City ground. Pace, pressure, and a very different challenge altogether. We'll be asking how much of last night carries over, what Forest can take from that European win, and how we approach Spurs with confidence rather than caution. European away win done. Big Premier League test coming up. Let's do this.
Looking to try and wriggle through, and he gets through and he scores! Well, he's hardly been in the game tonight, but he takes matters into his own hands, and for the second successive Europa League match. Morgan gives wide, lifts it back in, Callum Hudson-Odoi hooks it across, gonna fall in for Jesus, it's in! For impact off the bench, but there's the Brazilian Igor Jesus with 2.5 minutes to go, and Forest lead 2-1.
Well, we got the job done. That was the most important thing. And I was thinking with a few minutes to go that it was going to be Sturm Graz all over again, where you have the chances to win, Richard Spray. And for some reason, we can't quite put it to bed. But lo and behold, the saviour rises or appears at the back post. And Forest walk away with a 2-1 win. How are you feeling about it, buddy?
Well, feeling better, yeah, after that beautiful Brazilian man with the perfect teeth, right, and a childlike demeanor during interviews, decided to come on. And thankfully, that was a perfect sub, because I was like screaming for Bakwa. I'm like, where is Bakwa? Why isn't Ndoye still on the pitch? But I was in a good headspace at one point, and as you know, Greg, because I was messaging with you, and I was like, I'm sick of our team playing down to other teams. It's just gotten to the point where I'm like really fed up with it. I'm like, we are not going to go out with a draw on this, are we? Really, truly? Come on, guys. But no, thankfully, Jesus was great. I mean, he came on, he took command of the ball. He really was physical. He was just kind of like really inserted himself and made himself known. And yeah, that was a beautiful poacher's goal. I mean, the one thing Ndoye did do well, he had that really nice header that caused that moment, right? And from that cross after a beautiful ball from Morgan to, I think it was Callum. And so it was just a great overall passage of play and a great finish. It's what you want your strikers to do. Just be alert and ready wherever that ball ends up, right there in the box, to be able to put it home. And he did. So yeah, it was a lot. It just like my mood went from like one end of the spectrum to the other end of the spectrum, like instantaneously. And it's beautiful to watch because I thought we deserved it.
Good morning to Jamie Tatler from living in Orlando, Florida. Good to have you back with us on the pod, Jamie. How did you find last night's game? Were you as much? What time was it for you over there? Would it be in sort of mid-afternoon, right?
Yeah, it was an early one. It was 12:45 kickoff. First time we've had that slot this campaign, I think. So it was nice to have a lunchtime kickoff for once. You can't away win in Europe. You've got to be pleased with that. Was it as good as some of the spells we saw in the Betis away game? Like, probably wasn't as much quality in our play, but it was a lot better than the Graz performance. Both our strikers scored really good goals. I thought Jesus's finish was there was like four bodies, I think, between him and the goal, and he hit it into the ground and the bounce beat the goalkeeper. Really smart finish. Callum Wendo's finish was really good with his left foot, bottom corner. It was a clean sheet away from being a really solid performance. Still concerns, obviously, over the set piece defending, but overall, you've got to be pleased with a away European win.
Indeed. the random pundit, is with us. It's been a very busy week for all of us, and Raf was running around last night trying to tune in on his phone and catching bits of the game here and there and getting updates from the WhatsApp group and all the rest of it. Have you had time to breathe it all in yet, Raf? How did you find it?
Yeah, it was interesting. So I caught the first 25 minutes of the first half, and then the last couple of minutes of the first half as it was wrapping up, and then that was kind of it. So I think probably I have a slightly more positive view of the game, because in the first 25 minutes we were very much in the ascendancy, and things were very fluid. And my view of McAtee is that 25 minutes where he was doing an awful lot of good, and was actually the fulcrum from which everything was being played through, and he was playing progressive passes through lines and everything else as well, linking up play. So maybe all the wheels came off, and I know he got subbed off at half time, which I don't know how that correlates to what I saw in the first 25 minutes. But I've got to say, from catching my phone at the end of supper and then looking at all of these messages, it was with large trepidation that I was going through to see, have we actually managed to pull this off or not? And thank goodness we had.
It's an interesting one, Richard, when we think about the starting 11, because we'd all kind of like tried to predict it, but we had more players back, which is a great thing, from injury than we anticipated. We're still a little bit puzzled why Sangare didn't start, but with him going off to AFCON, but fair enough, giving Louise a start and then taking him off as a precaution was what they did. No backward in the 11 and no backward game time is something that puzzles me as well. And I never really thought, my God, McAtee's having a stinker. He needs to be hooked at half time. He did get taken off, and Sean Dyche has since come out and said that's no reflection on James McAtee. It was just more of a tactical shift. I'm not sure if I believe that or not. Like Raf, I think his first 20 minutes or so, he was involved, and he was getting into places on the pitch.
He was good.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, show quality.
He was.
Yeah.
So let's go back then. Line up. I mean, Don Victor was in goal. Were you thrilled to see Douglas Luiz back on the pitch?
I was, because I think when he's had opportunities to play, and he looked like he can slot right in and form a good partnership with Elliott. He was playing quite deep at points too, which was interesting. Kind of filling that Elliott role, right, where he picks the ball up and he tries to get everything moving. Sangare obviously does that as well at certain points when he's on the pitch. But yeah, I thought he looked. I mean, that one move he had on James Rodriguez for their team. I think it was James? I think it was James Rodriguez, but Rodriguez is his last name anyway, surname. So he just had that beautiful, just quick little juke, I guess, move on him, and you could just see it's just one little microcosm of what kind of quality he has on the ball and what he could do, because that's what you need, and you need a little bit more gravitas, I guess, for lack of a better word, in that midfield space. And, Sangare can show elements of that as well. And it was just interesting to have that back and be reminded of what he could be. I mean, it's just unfortunate that his body at times fails him for whatever reason, his hamstrings, whatever the muscular issues are that are driving him having to have these spells where he's not able to play. But I think it was just evident to what we could get from him. And if nothing else, if we do end up buying him, I'm concerned about the cost of that. But just given, the fact that there may be some business we might want to do in January, and that we certainly know we have to try to put ourselves in a better PSR position come June 30th for this, this current financial year. But I would definitely be in favor of keeping him, because I think having that kind of player on, especially knowing, hey, if we lose Elliott, granted different age bracket, Louise is a little bit more of a wild card when it comes to his health, but it's good to know that we have somebody who has similar skills on the ball and has similar ability to pick a pass and do things. He's just, clearly Elliott's, cut above that, and his trajectory is now as an England player makes it even more important for us to be able to utilize him as long as we can. But yeah, it was great to see Morel coming back. Great to see that we had Zinchenko back, and I thought he looked decent. I mean, he had moments, right, where he was very Zinchenko-like, including not being able to finish right in front of goal. Apparently, he doesn't like to use his right foot. Apparently, he has to use his left foot at all times, and that just gave him a really poor angle to try to just push that in, just nail it in. But yeah, I just thought in general it was great to see that maybe all of this depth that we had hoped to have is now starting to surface. It was a little bizarre not to see Backo come on at all, because it felt like it begged for it when Ndoye was just basically doing nothing. And even defensively wasn't doing much at all. So it's like, what is he really offering? What is he, I kind of made the joke in our WhatsApp group. What blackmail material does he have on the coaching staff that he has to stay on the pitch at all times? Because it just feels like he's just not progressing. So it begs the need, I think, to sit him for a while and kind of remind him, hey, nothing's given to you. You got to take it. So, but yeah, McAtee, I thought looked decent. It just a few errant passes here and there, but we've seen that from Morgan. We've seen that even from Elliott at times too. So it wasn't something I think freak out about. He just looked a little lacking in physicality and getting pushed off the ball a little bit too easy at different moments. But he did look like he had a little bit more spark, a little bit more energy for the time he was on the pitch.
We had quite a few chances, Jamie. Richard touched on the Zinchenko one, and on another day, maybe he's not so rusty and he can see Cali Mwendo in space on the 6-yard line. And then there was the Morato header that was glanced over, and the Hudson-Odoi shot that the keeper turned around the post. We have had this for a while, it seems. We should have been out of sight in the first 20 minutes. Is finishing becoming a structural issue that we can't keep ignoring?
First of all, you're right. Yeah, we should have. Those 3 chances were really, really way more than half chances, I think. Certainly Zinchenko's, he shanked that so wide. I think it went out for a throw-in almost. It's unbelievable, really, from so close range. Hudson-Odoi goes in on another day. I thought it was a really smart save. Goalkeeper got down low, got a strong hand to it. And Morato's header was good. And yeah, it kind of flicked off the top of a defender's head, didn't it? And just went over the bar. So you'd expect on a given day, 1.5 of those probably to go in on average. So to go in at 0-0 was disappointing. Is it a structural issue? I don't think so, because if it was 1 or 2 players, if it was always your forward players missing chances, then maybe you could start to think about that. But it's such a spread of players, I don't think they could all have inherent structural, psychological issues with finishing, because that's three different players in different positions with different types of chances. I think that last season we got more than our fair share of luck in terms of the rub of the green in finishing, and it's probably just balancing out a little bit this season, and we're not getting that rub of the green. So I don't think I think over the course of the season it should average out. Slightly more in our favour. Echoing Richard's thoughts, great to see Douglas Luiz back. I think a lot of our midfielders, bar Luiz, bar Anderson, and maybe bar Sangare, are what I would class as industrious, which is great. You need a lot of industrious midfielders, but Douglas Luiz is definitely got that bit of quality that as much as I love Yates, as much as I love Dominguez, they kind of don't possess on the ball. And we definitely need that mix, and we've definitely missed him. Zinchenko, Richard, you said you thought he did all right. I just don't see it with him really. He seems to want to just sort of float around and have almost like a free roll from fullback and make some nice touches and play some nice passes. And I'm sure every player would love that kind of lack of responsibility to go and win duels and really kind of play to a structure. But I think we need more of that at fullback, certainly in our system, and I just don't think he fits.
No, I wouldn't disagree with that. I'm just saying, all right. I don't, he was serviceable, but he wasn't he didn't impact the game significantly.
It's better than Morata at left back, put it that way.
Yeah, I
was
disagree
happy
with
to have the body back, because I think we needed to have bodies back on the pitch. I think I'd be satisfied if he returned to Arsenal in January, as long as we are thoughtful about who's going to be the left back cover. Want to say hello to Pat Brett, who's with us, and he says, I'm glad we've at least secured our playoff in the place in the playoffs. He says, I'm actually good with a couple of extra European games. Maybe not. Fixture overload can be a thing, especially if we have more injuries. Patch Adams says, and Ndoye needs to be dropped. His last goal or assist was against Palace. More from Pat. Luis, obviously a class player. If only he can stay fit. Yeah, we definitely subscribe to that. Colin Robinson on Ndoye says, does Ndoye struggle as our fullbacks don't overlap as much? Was trying to work out why he is better for the Swiss. Where are you on Dan Ndoye, Raf? Because I just think he's been very poor the last set of games. after quite a lively start in Nottingham Forest colours. Is it possibly to do with the fullbacks overlapping, as was suggested, or can you pinpoint anything else? It looks like his touch is gone. He's running out of play, and his decision making is out the window.
So I think there are a couple of factors here that are kind of come across my brain when thinking about Dan Doy. The first is I think he suffered more than just about anyone through the 3 change of managers and what was expected of him, because of his versatility of how he can be deployed as a full-out attacker, pretty much a very defensive wing back, or something kind of as a hybrid in between, because he's got that skill set. So he suffered probably from having to change what his instructions are and how he should play the most out of anyone. And he's been played pretty much the most out of anyone as well through the 3 managers that have been here. So I think he suffers a bit from that. The second thing is that we're missing Ola massively, and we've effectively got 2 kids that we're choosing from at right back at the moment. So his normal role that he would have, and where we've seen him excel, and I'll come on to that into a second, he's now got a dual function of really having to be first minded about making sure that we're okay at right back, then probably secondary is getting forward. And you can imagine under DICE instructions, that's probably front and center as well. The third is he has excelled for Switzerland on the left-hand side, not the right-hand side, where he's constantly deployed for us at the moment. But the reason why he's deploying the right-hand side is because he's the most defensively adept of all the wingers that we've got to help out the problem at right back. So I don't blame him. I also think it's massively unfair when Morgan Gibbs-White was playing like absolute shite for ages, and everyone was going, let's play him into form. And he just kept playing like shite, but we kept playing him. But Dan and Doy get separate treatment, and we just go, let's hook him. I know it worked for Elanga really well last season, so fingers crossed, maybe it does work like that. But I just think we need to not punish our players when it's not always 100% their fault, and they're probably being asked to do a job or multiple jobs that doesn't necessarily suit them, and we jump down their throat for it. The skill is there. If you look at the beginning of the season, when he was basically just purely attacking in those first couple of games, because we had Ola back then as well, and he was purely attacking, and he scored, it was a cracking goal and a cracking assist that came from him. So the talent's there. It's definitely there. It's just situational, I think, for him at the moment, which then is a confidence thing, which then causes many other problems as well.
Well, he hasn't been dropped from the starting 11. He has been hooked at half-time a couple of times. We'll talk about the Spurs match in the second half of this episode and whether he features from the start or not. But just back to the game in question, let's have a look at the goals, really, because it was crying out, really, after half-time for Forest to take the game by the scruff of the neck. They'd had the first 20 minutes pretty much dominating and should have gone 2 or 3 up. And sure enough, Utrecht come back into it. It's their home turf. And they rallied and they started to put Forest under pressure. They had more to offer than Malmo, definitely. And so I didn't think we were like really in trouble. But John Victor is Matt Turner in disguise, because he's coming out of his goal and it's a mistake waiting to happen. So we kind of rode our luck a little bit potentially. But we get the goal then, Richard. I mean, Kalimawendo looks lively at times, and other times he's not kind of in the game. Does he actually suit the Dyche system? I suppose that's the question we have to ask, because we've talked about him possibly being better with a person next to him. And so when we needed him, he burst into life. And really, I was chuffed to bits for him. I think I said in the WhatsApp, I was so thrilled for him. The type of goal was a hustling, bustling burst through. He got a bit of a lucky ricochet, but you make your own luck. And it was a fantastic finish, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, absolutely, because it wasn't easy the way that the ball dropped, right? I mean, he almost had to do like a half volley through the keeper's legs, and it was an acute angle too. I mean, it was just, that's the kind of stuff you saw with him with Ren. I mean, he was just he looked like he would get himself into, if he wasn't getting if he was making runs and no one was picking him up, right? He would find ways to find space, and then he would try to affect the game through just continual movement. And you saw moments too, not only in terms of the goal, but where a ball would be played by Utrecht, and he would accelerate to try to intercept that ball. I mean, there was one point I think in the second half where it just felt like things were getting a little bit lax, and we were just kind of trying to see the game out, and they were starting to gain a little bit momentum. And I think it was like in the 82nd, 83rd minute, whatever, because we had scored and we thought, okay, here we go, we're going to see this game out, right? We're just going to bet in. But then they started to get in a little pressuring a little bit more, and then lo and behold, he just accelerates back and intercepts this ball, and it really disrupts their play. And I think the fact that he's always looking to find a way to impact the game, it might not always be obvious because you may not be focusing on him exclusively until he gets the ball at his feet. But I think he definitely offers something, right? I mean, if he's got it, I think someone mentioned the other day, would it be interesting to see him and Jesus get, in a match, right? Whether it be against Braga or another European match or something of that ilk, or an FA Cup match potentially, see the two of them play together, because the way that they operate is very different. And so they kind of, if you had the two of them merged together in one human being as one striker, you probably get quite a pretty elite player, just because of the quickness that Callum Wendell possesses. His off the ball movement too is really good, like I mentioned. But yeah, it's just great to see. I mean, to see how excited he was when he scored. I think that it's obvious to me that he's feeling better about who he is in this team and what he's going to do going forward. He may be accepting that, hey, I'm not going to be the primary striker, right? And with Wood out, Jesus is going to be that primary striker. But where I do get opportunities, unlike what we've said about maybe a McAtee at certain points, he's going to find his way to make his presence known in some capacity. And he's taking advantage of that. I think he's doing what strikers do, which is put the ball in the back of the net when your opportunity comes. And so, yeah, like you said, a little bit of a nice deflection, but it started with him shifting out a little bit wider, right in the edge of the box, and then allowing Callum to give him the ball, and then him making a move. Thankfully, it fell to his feet, but it was about him and his quality in order to put the ball in the back of the net.
What about you, Jamie? Where are you on Callum Window? Are you confident with no Taiwo and no Chris Wood and Callie being the backup striker? How confident are you that he could make an impact in the Premier League game if he comes off the bench?
I think he's a bit of a relic in a lot of ways. Like you don't see that many of his profile anymore, in that he's more of like a poacher. So I think he's probably a more natural finisher than like Jesus or even Taiwo, certainly. And we haven't seen too much evidence of that. Although if you look at his highlight reel at Rennes, I think he backs that up. And the finish last night was really, really good. But he's not a player that's going to cause like a physical battle for a centre back, which I do think you need in the Premier League. And he almost wants to play on the shoulder. I think, if we played against teams that we ran in behind of them a lot more, I think he'd be more effective. But we just don't tend to do that much. So, do I think he fits Dyche's system? No. Do I think he's a different solution off the bench that is going to get a few goals across the course of a season? Yeah. So, is he a squad player for us? I think absolutely he's a squad player for us. I don't ever see him becoming more than that based on current evidence, although it's a pretty small sample size, so you never know. But I think you need different options, you need different profiles. He's definitely a different profile to the other strikers we've got. And as someone compared him to Robbie Earnshaw, and I think that's a great comparison. He is that kind of like that poacher. Yeah,
definitely. So Forest go 1-0 up and look like they're going to eke out the win. And lo and behold, Mike van der Horn comes off the bench. There it is. And as soon as I said the ex-Swansea player, I said, oh my God. What is it about Swansea this season? I just had this bad feeling. He was a big, tall, massive, huge centre-back. I thought, that's all wrong for us. And lo and behold, Raf, that back post set-piece goal again pops up with him lurking in around the back. Why aren't we learning from it? And, is this, is it a coaching issue, a personnel issue, concentration, dropping in an away game? What's going on with that back post goal again, Raf?
It is very frustrating, and we've got to be a bit careful here because I think, one, it's the number that we were just outnumbered on that back post, but you've also got Abbott in the mix, and he's still learning his craft quite a lot. You've got to think that quite a lot of set pieces comes from, and this is where we've challenged into the void, because we don't actually speaking to Matt Sells, but like through the medium of social media, is take some more ownership in the box. And I think Sells has got better at vocalizing. And I think if you've got a new goalkeeper, a completely rejumbled back line as well. I mean, we haven't really had stability in our back four throughout the season. There's been chopping and changing that's happened quite a lot. And then a switch of goalkeeper, I do think that naturally causes chaos in set pieces when you're defending them, because that general structure isn't there. Douglas Luiz offers quite a lot of organisational structure, which I've seen that of him on the pitch when it comes to set pieces. He came off at halftime as well. So quite a lot of that structure and other bits and pieces also shifts. And if I'm right, didn't Milenkovic come on for Murillo about 3 minutes before the goal as well?
There or thereabouts, yeah.
So you've also then got a shift in your back four of how it's been playing, and you've suddenly changed that up as well as a dynamic of them having a rhythm together, and that's suddenly been changed as well. So I do think it is a bit situational, because it's not like we're bleeding set piece goals at the moment. It's certainly not to the level that we were 2 seasons ago, as it were. So I don't think I'm at full panic stations. And I certainly do think that once we have Ola back, Murillo's now back and looking absolutely amazing. Oh, God, some of the swagger and the confidence on him for the first 25 minutes of just Cruyff turning players in really, really dangerous situations, then dribbling out. And Nico's he got a bit of a rest as well, which is great. Milenkovic needs to get his confidence back. Sells is kind of growing again. I think when all of that is together, I don't think we really have a worry. And I think it's just symptomatic of the fluidity in the back line at the moment, if I'm being honest. But I'm not surprised. Like, it was in the preview, I just said, this defender has been on it. He's had goals in the league for Utrecht in the league as well, from doing exactly that same thing. And I think I said to you, Rich, what was it in the chat? I was like, looking at the first 25 minutes, I don't see how these guys are going to score. It's going to be from a set piece, and we've just got to be on it. So I actually wasn't overly shocked that it was a set piece and it came from that man.
Yeah, it reminded me of the goal we conceded against Sunderland when they lofted it to the back post. So it's something we need to be looking at and working on. All right, we've just got a few more minutes left on the game before we close out this first half of the episode, Richard, but we got to talk about the man himself coming off the bench. I'll be honest with you, I was thinking leave Callum Mwendo on and put Jesus up with him and take Dan Ndoye off. Glad I'm not the manager, because in fairness to Ndoye, he got a good header on the Callum Hudson-Odoi cross, Morgan Gibbs-White getting involved as well. And that finish from that angle, I have to say, I was really kind of like taken aback when it went in. I was like, oh my God, he scored. Fantastic moment for him. And he's proving now to be a real bargain, isn't he?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I think 7 goals now across all competitions. So I made the comment, and I'm going to bring this up. I'm going to point the finger at me saying something somewhat intelligent, right? And making a prediction that might actually come true. I said he'll have more goals across all competitions than Ekitike, and I'm not wrong right now. So for £10 million, I understand there's a little bit of back alley sort of deals going on there with Texter, but it just feels like he's coming into his own. He's only 24. I mean, he's gonna continue to get better, and I think it's exciting for me because he has a little bit more mobility, and some of that's probably due to his age than Chris Wood. And we miss Chris Wood, obviously. What a brilliant player he is, great guy, great player. But it is amazing, and it's a little understated thing about him too. Majority of the time, if he takes on someone physically and he gets fouled, he's not rolling around on the ground and looking ridiculous. He gets back up and then he goes right at it again. I know that sounds silly, but it's just this mentality about him, right? There's a humility to him off the pitch. There's this like quiet aggressiveness to him on the pitch, and he's showing that he's growing into his role, and I'm probably getting a little overzealous because I absolutely love the guy and I was excited about him from the Club World Cup coming in. But for that price point, I think he's probably shown to be the best bargain and the best player we've signed in the offseason to date. Hutchinson certainly is trending up, right? Callum Mwendo is trending up, but I think Jesus has produced more than I expected, because we thought he was going to be very secondary to Chris Wood coming into this campaign, and he's shown he's more than that. And if he can continue to find ways to score goals, because hey, look, he should have 3 goals in the Premier League right now, but he doesn't, and that wasn't due to anything he did incorrectly. So it's tells me he's a player that I think we really need to watch out for. I think we did a little thing for a Tottenham podcast, right, Greg? I mean, and I said, like, he's a player that I think Tottenham wants to pay attention to, because he offers a lot more than you think, and the goals would make you believe he's not quite as elite of a striker, but he's moving in that direction to becoming, hey, hopefully a 12 to 15 goal guy on an annualized basis. That would be fantastic, I think, because I don't know if he'll ever hit the heights of 20, but hopefully that would happen, but I think he offers a lot, and he's not a total drop off, I think, in terms of the profile of player that he is, because he can manage the ball airily as well. And like you said, he found that difficult angle and still put it away at a key moment that we absolutely needed something to come through. So
yeah, he's coming up with the important goals. The Wolves winner last night,
Yep.
He got the winner as well. Was unlucky with a couple of goals ruled out, and so now it looks like he's on a bit of a streak. Hopefully he can take it into the weekend. Forest now move into 11th place in the Europa League on 11 points. So with 2 games left to play, definitely going to feel like we got a chance to get into that top 8 automatic qualifying. I'd rather have the top 8 automatic qualifying. I think that's going to suit us better. Let's just get that done and dusted, not have to worry about a tricky knockout. But yeah, I'm feeling positive. Sean Dyche, he's come in, I think it's something like 10 games in charge or 11 games in charge. He's won 6 of them. We've had those 3 defeats in the Premier League and a couple of draws. I think all in all, the report card has to be positive. Sure, there's a long way to go in terms of how this squad will shape up. But we've had some injuries and players out, and with the likes of Louise back now, and Zinchenko can play games, and Bakwa hopefully back into the mix as well. Wood not far away as well. Hopefully Ryan Yates not out for too long. But, we have to make sure that the squad is in good shape for both competitions, and of course the FA Cup against Wrexham to come in January. All right. Thank you very much, chaps, so far for your input on last night's win against Utrecht. We're looking at the Premier League next.
The Cheese Trader, based on Grape Lane in York, is a cheese lover's paradise. Home to some wonderful specialty cheeses, relishes and chutneys, and also with a fantastic street food menu. Try their loaded fries or posh cheese on toast. It'll be the best you've ever had. Owned by Forest fan Stu Freestone, the Cheese Trader proudly sponsors Talking Reds. Quote Talking Reds every time to get 10% off your order. The Cheese Trader and Talking Reds, the perfect cheesy mix.
The perfect cheesy mix. Stu Freestone is the Cheese Trader. He proudly sponsors Talking Reds. Check out the bio. You can get 10% off. I think if you want to get an order in before Christmas, anything up until about the 18th is good. He's super, super busy. And I highly recommend a cheese hamper. They're pretty inexpensive for some really quality cheese. Unfortunately, can't ship outside of the UK. It would just spoil. Sorry, guys. All right, let's look at Spurs ahead. Jamie, how are you feeling about this one? Spurs have been better this season. We've got Ange Postecoglou in common with them now as well. What are you thinking about when it comes to Spurs coming to the City ground on Sunday?
Yeah, the Angelos Derby, as it shall be known. It could be a good fixture for us. I mean, if you think about the sort of games that we tend to like, we like being slight underdogs. I think I'd much rather Spurs than an Arsenal or a City coming. But we've struggled against the teams we've been expected to beat sometimes this season. So their profile, I think, could work well for us. They seem to be a fairly fragile team still, even under Thomas Frank. Like once the heads drop, they seem gettable. So I'm optimistic. I would hope that we've got a stronger 11 than the Everton game with, I think Murillo is massive. Like when Murillo doesn't play, not just defensively, but our whole build-up is just blunt. We struggle to get the ball into our creative players on the half turn like Murillo can do. So I think having him back is enormous. If Douglas Luiz can play some minutes, if Bakwa can get off the bench. I think Bakwa probably would have got off the bench last night if we'd have been like 2-0 up with 10 minutes to go. I think it's probably just a symptom of the the need for another goal that we didn't see him, but he's approaching match fitness, so we seem to have a few more options. So it's one of those. It could go either way, which is an obvious thing to say. But if I could pick a fixture, given our current position, I think Spurs would probably be one that you'd quite fancy. So I'm optimistic. I think we can get something. A point would probably be a decent result. Just keep some momentum. We just don't want to see another Everton style performance. I think that's the main thing. But yeah, I'm optimistic. I think we can get something from the Tottenham game.
What about you, Richard? How are you feeling about Sunday?
Yeah, probably in the same sort of mindset as Jamie. I think it's we never want to use the dreaded word winnable because that's such a bad moniker. But I would say that it's definitely a team that we can compete with. I think they've got some. I think Raph will touch on it. They've got some injury challenges in a number of areas. But I think the top end, very highly functioning Van de Ven is always challenging. That guy's just a very difficult person to deal with because of the sheer raw pace. I think that's the one thing that they possess that I just don't see we have quite in abundance. Clearly, with the loss of Elanga, is that lack of really tricky and difficult to manage type pace that they have. Because I think Romero is also a very quick player. So they've definitely got a little bit more athleticism on the back end in particular. But I think by virtue of that, hopefully I don't think they've given up a counter goal this season, but I think we're the type of team that potentially could do that, especially when Morgan's on it and he is getting on the half turn, like Jamie mentioned, his vision's there. I mean, he had a beautiful ball to Callum last night, which set up that second goal from Jesus. I mean, that was elite Morgan moment, right? That's why he's on the pitch, that little, floater right over the top of the defense to an oncoming running player in Callum. And, Callum did the right thing as Callum does more often than not and put it back over the middle and made it difficult for their defense to deal with. And so those kinds of things, I think we're a little bit more of a direct team. They're going to, I definitely feel like there's opportunities for us to carve them open, specifically in transition and on the break, because I think that's where when they press up so high, we could potentially get behind them. Not to steal Raf's thunder, but because he'll go into a lot of really great detail on that. But I do think there's opportunity there.
Okay. Well, let's find out a bit more about Spurs, a team that most of us know because their players are quite high profile. But here comes the opposition preview.
Send them back to East London! We send them back!
I hope anybody's not stupid enough to write us off.
Here we go.
Excellent. Cheers, guys. Right. So Spurs. As Greg was saying, Spurs, we all know Spurs quite well. But they do have their own challenges, and it's interesting looking at their form as well and what's been going on with them as of late. The way that they normally set up is very familiar to us. And actually, when we do these previews, most teams do play it at the moment, which is this 4-2-3-1. And you're going to have Vicario in goal. You're going to have Van de Ven probably in defence. And I would have thought you would have Romero. It is their ultimate partnership, and both of them are fit. So it's the Van de Ven Romero partnership as their two centre backs. Udogie is we're going to come on to fitness in a second, but if he's fit, he'll be the one that's on the left. Otherwise, it'll probably be the still to many beloved Jed Spence, who will deputise. But I mean, given the fact that Jed Spence seems to be doing that for England, it's not a massive downgrade if they're putting in Spence on that left-hand side. You're going to have Porro on the right as their right wing back. Getting into the middle of the park, this is where potentially we just don't know what they're going to do, but it is a slightly depleted midfield /10 situation. Bentancur seems to be the kind of mainstay as their solution in there at the moment with the injuries they've got. Paulinho should be coming back, but as you can see, Archie Gray has featured 2 of the last 3 games as well. And that's where it's just depending on what the mentality that Frank is going to have. If they go defensive and going to go Bentancur and Paulinho, or do they switch one of those out and maybe put an Archie Gray in there to give it a more attacking kind of flow? Listening to a lot of their fans, they seem to complain about the fact that Frank does go quite a lot defensive compared to what they're used to. So it might be the fact we do see a Bentancur, Paulinho midfield. Brennan Johnson, I think, actually is going to be fit, even though he's listed as injured. And isn't that going to be so standard for him to be fit enough to face us? But he might be then deployed down the left-hand side. It's really interesting of who they're going to put in the 10. It could be Simmons. It could be Bergvall. They could shift it all around. But what we do know is that Mohamed Kudus will be playing down their right-hand side. And we're going to have... I'm nearly pretty sure of it, Richarlison playing as that striker with Solanke injured at the moment. They are, Spurs are doing better, but they're flattering to see this. They're sitting 11th in the league with 22 points, kind of exactly where Newcastle, just around where Liverpool are. So they're doing better than us, but they're not exactly flying. But they have tailed off quite badly. Their form is not brilliant. So they picked up 5 points from their last 5 games. But there's a context here a little bit. Now, we've picked up 9 points in the last 5 games, which sounds awesome. But if you think back to it, we've played pretty badly for the last 3 games in the Premier League. And that win at Wolves wasn't very pretty to give us 3 of those points. Whereas actually, Liverpool have won their last game. And so, but again, contextually, it was against Brentford and they were at home, and Brentford are awful away from home. So their form isn't brilliant. And actually, odds-wise, we are shading it to be bookies' slight favourite, which doesn't usually favour us, to be beating Spurs. So if we actually have a look at who is injured and a little bit about how they play in the next slide. Now, given what we talked about, back stick antics, it is slightly concerning if we have a look at 7 of their goals that they've got have come from set pieces. Okay, they've only conceded 2, so that's a healthy ratio in their favour on set pieces. So this is actually one of the main things I'm worried about is set pieces and having that organisation. But if we have Nico back, we have Murillo back, we have Milenkovic back, hopefully Sells is fit and it back in there, and Savona's height as well, or potentially Abbott's height, but with some organisation, we might be able to repel them, but we need to be on it. When it looks to the balance of how they attack, it very much is those wings. If you think about their wing backs between Porro and Udogie, or Spence with Kudus and whoever might be on the left-hand side, there's so much threat that comes down their wings. So the fullbacks are going to have a large amount of work to do. But with this Spurs team, they are very balanced, okay? So there's 38% of the threat that comes down the left, 37% that comes down the right-hand side. But again, there's a lot of crossing that comes into the box because only 13% left or right shots are coming in from either of the flanks, but 74 of the shots are coming in from that middle trunk as well. And you can see that it's, they've got 54% of their shots are coming in the 18-yard box, but there is slightly more poaching that's going on, and Richarlison, we'll come on to a bit of Richarlison's movement, but 15% of their shots are inside that 6-yard box, okay, which is a bit of an uptick actually on some of the other teams that we've seen recently. And that is that kind of poaching Richarlison threat that is there. They are partial to a bit of a shot from outside the box, with 31% of their shots coming from outside of there. Now, on the injury side of things, Basuma is definitely out. Kulusevski, which is a massive miss from them in that kind of 10 slot, is definitely out. Maddison, permanently injured, it seems, at the moment, definitely out as well. Solanke up front, which is why Richarlison's starting, definitely out. Now, Udogie and Dragusin have got about 75% chance of starting. And if we're unlucky, like the whole flipping Keane at having 75% chance of starting, or even 50%, and definitely starting and causing us a bit of a problem at Everton, don't rule out them starting and causing us a bit more of a headache in terms of the strength of their side. And I think Brennan will be fit enough. It says 50-50, but actually he's kind of upticked a bit, and I think he will be back in time for it. If we have a look at the games where we've played against each other, it's very much. We've actually got better since we've come up. When we came up, we kind of lost to them the whole time for the first 2 years when we played them. But actually, last season we beat them. We did the double over them. And that was the first time that we've actually beaten them since coming back up again. So things are trending back towards our direction in the head-to-heads, but it's not a sustained we're always better than them, or it hasn't been a shift. You even look at our XG. We nicked a 2-1 at theirs last time with a far, far inferior XG, but it's not always been the case. Teams we've had the better of it sometimes, they've had the better of it sometimes. So it's very difficult to predict, even home and away, how this shakes up. And it's very much in the kind of ethos of how these teams are, or annoyingly the DNA of the teams. It's which Spurs is going to turn up, which Forest is going to turn up. And there's so much variability on who actually turns up on the day and how it goes. So then if we get to the next, how have they been playing and who are their key players? Well, the first stat, if we have a look at the top left, is they are much better away from home than they are at home, with 4 of their 7 games away from home that they have won. With draws against Newcastle, lost against Arsenal, but then beat Everton, beat Leeds, beat West Ham. But if you're having a look at some of those, and Everton have come on a bit more strong recently, and Leeds have come on more recently, but they beat West Ham when they were rubbish. They beat Leeds when they weren't doing very well, and they beat Everton before their kind of uptick. So again, the quality of where they've gone away to win, but we are not high in the league as well. So we are going to have to play very, very well to beat them. Again, Richarlison, he's banged 6 goals in and is the main goal threat. It is getting up to their now inherited 9. I don't have Solanke, but he is on great form this season, banging in 6 goals. This is, again, the defenders in set pieces. Van de Ven and Romero have 5 goals between them, but it's spread 3 and 2. So you can't just mark one of them at set pieces. It's a double threat at set pieces between Van de Ven and Romero. So that's also problematic. Kudos from the right wings chipped in with 2 goals, but there's also 2 goals from Johnson potentially being left or right. Tell, when he's played on the left, he's chipped in with 2 goals as well. So both wings have got goal threat on it, but the creativity of where it's coming from is definitely from that right-hand side, with Kudos having 5 assists, and by far the most assists coming from that right-hand side and feeding Richarlison in that box. Richarlison himself does drop off a bit and can create for the others, chipping in with 2 assists as well. And Javi Simmons, if he's playing in that kind of 10 role, he's got 2 assists, he's got a goal. It's not a dead 10 spot, even they're probably down to their 3rd option in that 10, behind Maddison being injured, behind Kulusevski being injured. There's still productivity in that 10. But for me, one of the surprises we all think of João Paulinho back from his Fulham days. But although of being defensively massively solid, this season he's kicked on hugely, and he's already got 2 goals and 2 assists on top of all the defensive work that he's doing in the midfield. So I do believe he is back and he will play, I'm pretty sure. And so he's something where Elliot Anderson is probably going to have to do a job, or Douglas Luiz or whoever it is going to have to do a job shutting down Paulinho. Their best players, they've got 4 that have gone for 7 and above on SofaScore. Christian Romero has been an absolute superstar for them this season, both defensively and chipping in with a few goals. He's on a 7.28, Paulinho 7.16, Vicario, goalkeeper, having a really good season with a 7.05, and Kudos, like I was saying, he's on a 7.01. Interesting, you don't see Richarlison on that sevens, but that's why it's kind of a bit more of a poachery type thing where he's just in the right place at the right time a lot and converting a lot of the good work from everyone else that's on the pitch. So just quickly looking then at 4 of those players that I've mentioned in terms of their heat maps, it's that kind of kudos Richarlison. Now, if you have a look for those that are viewing, they can see it. For those that are listening, kudos is hugging that right-hand side. It is just deep red all along the red side of how much ball he is getting. And his move to Spurs has really springboarded his career and really set him alight compared to just how ineffectual he was previously. So there's a lot of threat from that kudos threat, and we can see how quintessential he is and how they play. Now with Richarlison, you see he's got red dots kind of popped all over the kind of their attacking half, but he's got a few also in the defensive half. So he's putting in a bit of that Wood Jesus shift of getting back and helping out a bit defensively. But there are 2 big red spots that are between the penalty spot and the 6-yard box. And that is where balls are just being fed into him, into that danger zone. If you imagine Murillo charging back and like clearing last minute clearances, I think there's going to be a lot of that happening in this game. Then we've got those options below where we've got the Bentancur, Paulinho and Gray heat maps. The reason why Gray hasn't been played as much, which is why he doesn't have as much red density to him. But you can see that Bentancur is the one that is shielding that back line, that back 4 or back 2, because their wing backs are just bombing on quite a lot of the time. He ventures a little bit onto the opposition half, but not anything like you're seeing Paulinho, who is very much more balanced between the defensive side, but also popping into the attacking side, but drifting as well. He drifts left, he drifts right. So he is going to be a lot of that difficult to tie down enforcer, if you think a little bit of Caicedo-ish in that middle of just causing absolute chaos for them with him being back. But as you can see from the small amount with Archie Gray, he's not that much in the defensive half. He's very much kind of left side opposing half and kind of shifting around from the middle to the left-hand side. So that's kind of the options when they take 2 in the midfield of how they might chop and change. It might shift through the game and the balance then might shift for what they do. And that's how they can affect it, by bringing in and shifting that midfield engine up of what it does. But Nico, he's got another big game coming of trying to shut down Kudos to stop the threat and feeding Richarlison, basically. You're on
mute, buddy.
Done it again. An extensive look at Tottenham. Thank you very much, Raf. All right, so time is ticking away from us guys now. So we want to think about Forest. We've gone back to doing FOTMob for this one because we didn't get teams off everyone. Jamie, I'm going to come to you first and ask you about what you think you'd like to see when it comes to Forest lining up on Sunday. What's on screen is the last team that started against Everton. What do you think? I can move the players in and out. You give me who you want to play and where. Currently it's up as a 4-2-3-1. What do you think, Jamie?
I think we're at the point where Ndoye can't start any more games. I mean, at the moment, he's in really poor form. I understand the argument about starting with Everton. It didn't work out that way. So I can't justify keeping Ndoye in the starting lineup at this point.
For who?
But that's the problem, isn't it? Because Callum played 90 minutes yesterday, so that suggests maybe that Ndoye is in the plans for Dyche. So
he played 90 as well.
I guess he did, I suppose. Yeah, Bakwa's not going to be fit. So I mean, if Callum's fit, I'd play Callum on the left. I'd play Hutchinson on the right, and that would be my team. If Hudson-Odoi is able to start the game, then yeah, I think that the rest of it kind of picks itself. Although you want Murillo in from Ratto, obviously, at the bottom there. I didn't notice that. That's a no-brainer, of course, if Murillo's fit. But apart from that, I don't think there's too many other arguments to make. I mean, Dominguez with a bit more engine in midfield, but that would mean you'd have to switch Gibbs White out wide. And I think it's a game let's try and make them worry about us. They've got plenty of threats, but if we try and just combat all their threats, we kind of nullify ourselves. We've seen that in other games this season. So let's play Hutchinson. Let's keep Gibbs White in the middle. Let's give them stuff to think about as well.
So the team, for those that can't see it, is Nico Williams at left back, Savona in at right back, Murillo back in alongside Milenkovic, a midfield two of Anderson, Sangare, Hudson-Odoi left, Hutchinson right, Gibbs White in the 10, and then Igor Jesus up front. Jamie, how concerned are you that Matt Sells has got a groin strain? He's in this team. Are you worried about John Victor?
So, I mean, that sounded precautionary to leave him out, and I hope that's the case. I am worried about John Victor. You described him as Matt Turner in disguise, and hopefully he's not that bad, but you do have that worry. I mean, even in the last few minutes of the game, all he had to do was put his foot through a ball and clear it, and he ended up slicing it straight to their player in the middle of our own half. And
he could have put his foot on it and controlled it and had time, but he just rushed it, didn't he? It was horrendous.
And I think you can't underestimate the impact that level of nervousness has throughout the rest of the team, and it impacts all the defense's decision making when they're worried about their goalkeeper behind them. So for that reason, I'm massively worried if Matt Sells is not fit, but I think he will be. I think that was precautionary.
Yeah, let's hope so, because I'm worried about a backup goalkeeper at the moment. Okay, Richard Spray, over to you. I mean, can you make any changes to this? I mean, we're at home. Sangare's last game before going off to AFCON, it feels like he would start, but Douglas Luiz, again, I think is a far superior player. So do you start Douglas Luiz and bring Sangare on? Which way round do you do it?
No, I kind of keep it as it is because, as Jamie alluded to, I think it kind of picks itself at the given moment, and we want to utilize Sangare as much as humanly possible before he exits to go to AFCON. So then we have Luiz coming in probably and doing a little bit more shift work in that sense, and pairing up with Anderson, which I know defensively Sangare is obviously a little bit more superior, but I think from a vision to pick out a pass to drive us forward in attack and to allow us to have a little bit more, I said, quality from a creativity standpoint, from seeing the field a little bit more. Sangare does offer that, and it's amazing when you see him come in now. There was all this worry, can he ever become what we think he should become? And I think he's really become a solid and very effective player for us. And you could see his quality when he came back on. Not that it was a drop off from Luis, just in terms of the way that the team was able to kind of do more in attack from an attacking standpoint when he and Anderson were present. But I will make one change, and I know this might be kind of odd. I feel like there's, and I'll give Dan Scape the credit for this because he's offset, Abbott in for Savona. And the reason I say that is because I think Abbott, to me, he may come across as a bit of just sort of like doing a job, moving the ball back. There were a couple of moments where I'm like, move forward, don't go backwards again. You know what I mean? But he's just trying to do the safe thing. I think it's his quickness. I think he's got a little bit more quickness. There is a bit of a, obviously Savona's had the opportunity to get more acclimated to the speed and some of the physicality of the Premier League. But when we saw Abbott come on against Man City last year at a younger age, I don't think he looked completely out of place. And that was one game in isolation, I realized. But there's something about, I think, folding him in now to some of the Premier League matches, because he strikes me as a player that is going to be really critical for us in that right back role, even though I know theoretically that's not his natural position. But he doesn't, for someone who's shorter than Savona, I think he still offers decent capability from an aerial standpoint. But there's an athleticism to Tottenham that really worries me. And Jed Spence, if he's on the pitch, is going to be a problem for any fullback that we have, even Aina. But Aina's got that quickness, right? And he has that ability to track back, and he can probably match him somewhat more step for step than most of the other fullbacks we have. But that was my only thought. Could we consider, and maybe just as a talking point, everything else I think is right. I think Hudson-Odoi, frankly, from a depth standpoint, from a depth chart standpoint, I think it's Hudson-Odoi, then Ndoye on the left, and Hutchinson then potentially back on the right. Because what you deploy with that is, yes, Hudson-Odoi is not the most adept defender, but he's probably better at it than Hutchinson. And you have a guy who's more adept at the defending side of it in Ndoye. So you kind of deploy this sort of Diamonism on the right and a little bit more Diamonism, obviously, from Hudson-Odoi than Ndoi on the left, but a little bit more defensive solidity. I understand that might be counterintuitive given that the right side is the problem, right, with these younger players. But I do think that that, to me, might be the depth that's starting to come in, where Backwell kind of spells Hutchinson. And then I'm just curious to see how Abbott would function in that right back role and what you guys would think about him coming in instead of Savona.
Okay, I'm going to chip in with my team. For me, Abbott, absolutely not. You
answer that question very quickly.
The reason why I say that, I thought he actually struggled a little bit last night. I thought he looked at times, it was his worst. I don't like using the word worst. It sounds like he was really bad and he wasn't, but I thought it was the game that he struggled the most in out of all the games he's played for Forest. And I would rather have the 6'5" right back playing at right back rather than the big burly young centre back playing at right back. Savona is a right back. I know he's a big tall one, but he is a right back. He scored against Man United, scored against Liverpool. I know that he's not perfect. If it was another game and it wasn't Spurs at home, I would be switching Williams to right back and playing Zinchenko. Not doing that on Sunday because of the Kudus factor that Raf talked about. So Williams has to play. But no, I just don't see Abbott at right back against Spurs personally. I think it would be problematic. I don't think he's ready for it at the moment. I know that he did play at Wembley against Man City. You know, the adrenaline factor would come into play, but I don't think he offered very much going forward in that game as well. I'd also make a change. I harped on about let's get the most out of Sangare before he goes off to AFCON. That was because I didn't know that Douglas Luiz was back. So I would start with Douglas Luiz in the game against Spurs with Anderson. Whether Sangare is going away or not, I think we've got to play the game that's presented to us and therefore play the best team we possibly can. If Douglas Luiz is fit to play, even if it's the first 45 minutes again, I'd rather start with Douglas Luiz and get a foothold in the game and take it to half-time, even if it's 0-0 at half-time. And Sangare can still come into the mix. So for me, Anderson and Luiz playing in midfield. Again, this is pending on fitness. Murillo coming back into the team is an obvious one. I think he looked a little bit leaner last night. The virus might have had an effect on him. I felt like he was carrying a little bit too much weight this term so far. Not excessively, but maybe a little bit too much.
He thought he got the shits and literally lost about a stone or something.
Yeah, he looks like it. And I think he looks a little bit leaner. And I'm pleased for that. I enjoyed his Cruyff turns. I enjoyed him on the ball. And so, yeah, Hutchinson comes back in because he's the man with the assists at the moment. And he has to play. Hudson-Odoi for me is first choice left winger. Dan Ndoi's got to come and feature off the bench. Gibbs White showed last night, yes, that he has those flashes of inspiration and he has to play in the 10 at the moment. Igor Jesus is an obvious pick. And yeah, I'll answer my question that I posed. It would frighten the life out of me if John Victor starts the game on Sunday. And this is a guy that really liked John Victor from what I saw of him. But, you know, it just doesn't fill me with confidence. And Jamie, you talked about the back line needing confidence in the goalkeeper. And, you know, it's a worry. So, yeah, I'm going 43-1 and Luiz coming in. And apologies, Richard. I didn't mean to appear so abrupt in my dismissiveness of my view on Abbott at right back.
I just disagree with your assessment of him having his poorest performance. I actually saw him show a little bit more quickness and a little bit more adeptness on the ball. I mean, if you go back and watch it, I think there was moments where he advanced forward and he actually he got around some players. You know, maybe that's just my bias because I would like to see these academy players, you know, be successful clearly, but I don't know. I mean, I think Savona's done really well. He's been very admirable. I mean, he put in a shift against Semenyo, for example, and did a great job. So it's not that he can't do it. It's just that when you have a 19-year-old that is one of the most talented players you have coming through your academy right now, or at least has shown that to date, I don't think he's more unnatural at right back than Savona, because I think there's some questions as to whether his natural position is truly right back. I think he's done both, and his height is not being used to an advantage. Let me tell you. Because he's not good. He doesn't have lower body, explosiveness where he gets up and gets balls. So, from a set piece standpoint, and he's shown moments too of being a little bit lax and not using that football IQ that, when you're younger, you're going to struggle with a little bit until you get more experience. So I understand what you're saying, and I completely agree with it. It's probably a safer pick. It's probably a safer pick at this stage, but it was just something I thought was. But yeah, no, I didn't think it was dismissive. I was just
it's
throwing
valid.
it out there to be
having a
different.
right back is completely valid. I mean, we have to. I also want our academy players to be put into the games as well. For me, I just think Spurs on Sunday is the wrong game for that. Raf, what do you think?
Okay, so if Sel's fit, definitely Mirilo Milenkovic. I think that's a given. It's a really good point, Greg, which you made, which is Zinchenko's back, so we could actually play 2 senior fullbacks. But yeah, per what I've said, which is you reinforced as well, putting Zinchenko against Mohamed Kudus is just kamikaze. So we're not going to do that. So I do think it is Savona. I actually think Savona bags another goal against Spurs. Just right place, right time in the box. And I think that's really key at the moment. He's actually one of our largest goal threats that we have that has been proved to be an adept finisher. And so I'm happy with that back 4. It's an interesting point which Danscape's been making about Anderson and Luiz doing the same thing in midfield. And I think hopefully if the instruction is Luiz to push a bit further forward, but I am a fan of those two starting and winning that midfield battle from the beginning and giving us a bit of a platform. Luiz then can come off after 45 minutes to protect him. We've got a week until the next game as well, which is why I think we can play anyone we want and then we're okay. But I don't start Hutchison. I'm his biggest fan, and I think he's going to become our most important winger. But when I look at who we've got coming off the bench, it's Dominguez then, it's Sangare, it's Zinchenko, it's Ndoye, it's Callum Wendo. None of those bring that impetus of tempo and excitement. Now, if Luiz doesn't start, then I think Hutchison can start, because if you bring on Luiz, then he brings that tempo and energy and quick ball that suddenly starts happening and positivity. But you need one or the other to be on the bench to shift momentum by putting that through. So for me, I'd start Bakwa on the right-hand side, because also he offers a bit more defensively than Hutchison. I'd have Luiz, Anderson. Callum has grown. He was not good since he's come back. I think he's just getting his match sharpness back. And for him to have the space with Porro vacating the right back spot quite a lot of the time, I think Callum can feast quite heavily on that left-hand side. So for me, that's probably the switch. I'd switch backward in. It's interesting. All 4 of us have gone for slightly different combinations. And this is the awesomeness of having a deeper squad back, which is these options. So yeah, I'd give Bakwa 45 minutes, and I would actually have a planned change for the second 45 minutes, Hutchison to come on anyway, and maybe then Luiz to be switched out at 45 minutes and put on a Sangare or a Dominguez, depending on what the situation was.
Okay, fantastic. We are out of time, guys. Jamie, I know you've got to head out. So we're going to wrap things up very, very quickly. Going to go around everyone. Start with you, Jamie. Give us your score prediction.
Optimistic is 2-1. Realistic is probably 1-1.
Okay, thanks, Raf.
If I predict a win, we lose. If I don't, we win. So I'm going to predict a 2-1 Spurs win. Take one for the team.
Richard Spray.
Yeah, I mean, if Sells is in goal, this might be an option. I think it's a 1-1, frankly, but I'm hoping for a 1-0 win where we just nick something. And like Jamie, Raf talked about, we play above our XG, we get that half chance that we put away, and then win 1-0 and keep moving up the table.
Thanks very much, guys. Been a real pleasure. Thanks to everyone in the chat as well. I'm going to say 3-2 to Forest. I'm going to always try and back us for a win. I think the 3-2 scoreline might come into play. So Savona to score. You heard it here first from Raf. And Igor Jesus with a brace. James had to depart. Thank you very much to him. Thank you to Raf and Richard. We'll be back at another time. What are we on now? We're on Friday. We'll be back to review the Spurs game on Monday. Keep your eyes and ears peeled for that time slot. Looking forward to being up at the game with Orlando. So I'll be in attendance at the City Ground on Sunday, and in the NAV beforehand, I'll be hoping to see Andrew Cove and one or two others as well. So if you do happen to catch the man with the white beard, do come over and say hello. See you soon.
Come join Greg and Richard right here on Talking Red.